right, guys, so today I'm in West Ashley in Charleston, South Carolina. So this is a community that we've wanted to be in for a while. We've actually had people drive over bridges to come to our locations, but just with the traffic, it didn't make sense long term. So we're excited to open up our new space in this area and continue expanding throughout the Charleston region. So I'm going to show you guys today exactly what we look for when looking at new locations and how we identify the next great fit for Charleston Taekwondo. All right, guys, just getting back to the office from checking out locations in West Ashley. Gonna talk the good, the bad, the ugly, all the stuff in between, but basically where we go from here. But before we dive into that, I got to do my weekly staff training call. I'm just a big believer too, we talked about this before, I think full-time position, it means full-time effort. Part-time position is part-time effort. Part-timers have no problem calling out, from my experience. Again, we don't have to figure it out today, but it's something to think about. Positioning the opportunity as a full-time position versus a part-time position. The numbers aren't that much of a difference. All right, so we now have our Kids That Win location number 7 is open. It is time to start shopping for our next location. So the way we identify locations is we actually have a real estate company that we work with here in the Charleston area, and they've been able to look at our existing locations and we've been able to map out our clientele. So we know basically where they like to live, how much money they like to spend on their home, how much income they have coming in, how much disposable income they have, where they like to shop, right? We try to create the perfect avatar for our locations. And then we look at other areas around our community and around the state of South Carolina and say, what other areas fit this mold? And then we know that we're most likely going to have success in that area. But once we talk to a landlord, we've identified the location. The things we're going to look at is what type of free rent period the landlord's willing to give us, what type of tenant improvement allowance they're willing to give us. In the Charleston area, typically they're more willing to work with you on a free rent basis than the TI. The landlords here do not like to cut checks to make their buildings better, but that's okay. So we know that, okay, if we had gotten TI, this is what it would cost, and that's now what we're gonna ask for in a free rent period. But at the end of the day, we have to put our business in the best possible position to win. So today we spent the morning shopping out for new locations, and honestly, it was a complete bust. I thought the price was $22 a foot. Once we got there, they gave us a little bait and switch and said, hey, it's actually $28.50 per foot. But the building needed a ton of work. So basically the numbers just didn't make sense. The landlord was not willing to do any type of free rent period. They were not willing to do any tenant improvement allowances. So for us, that's just a hard pass. We did see a couple other locations, and one location looked like it might be a great fit. So we're gonna look more into that and dive into the numbers a little bit deeper. But we really just do back of the napkin math, right? We basically figure out how many kids can we fit in this location. We know what our revenue is gonna be from that number. And then from there, we like to keep our rent traditionally in the 10 to 15% range, but with things growing in Charleston, that number might be shooting up closer to 20%. So we know specifically how much we can pay per square foot to make sure that our location is a success. So, and another thing to consider is as our locations are expanding, right? So we're covering more footprint of the Charleston community. Not every area is exactly the same. So some of our locations are able to charge more money, whether that be for tuition, for parents' night outs, for different events and revenue generators that we have in our businesses. So we want to have a blanket way that we look at the business as a whole, but also as we're growing and expanding, we understand that new territories are going to have new opportunities, but also going to be new challenges as well. So some locations may charge more or less than others. Some locations will have a greater population density than others as well. So we have to take all of that into consideration when we are identifying new locations that we want to go to. So one question I get is, if we cannot find a viable location in a community or an area that we want to go to, what do we do now? So we are in a fortunate position that we have a bench of instructors that are ready to open locations. So for us, we've already identified 5 other areas in the greater Charleston region that we want to be in. So if we can't find anything specifically here, maybe it's time to put this on hold and we'll go to a different area in a different region and just start there. So for us, we know the end goal. We want to have 5 more locations here in the next 12 months. Depending on where we need to start, that's not a huge deal, but we just got to keep the eyes on the prize and keep going.